Hi people of the world, my name is Maximus Griffin Anthony, and in this video I'm going to be doing another book discussion for one of my books. This book that I'd like to talk about today is called Why Do Girls Wear Makeup, which is a 7 Deadly Sins romance fanfiction, and it is for the couple of Bon and Jericho. Now, unlike in my last book discussion video, One Late Night with the 7 Deadly Sins, I realized after watching I pretty much spoiled the whole book, which was kind of a stupid idea, if I'm honest. So I'm gonna do my best not to spoil the book this time. So forgive me for spoiling the book last time. If you were interested in reading it then, and I'm sorry I spoiled everything in the video. So I'm not gonna do that in this book discussion. So this book is a book I wanted to write because I noticed lately that stories that I have read, I read other people's stories on Wattpad. I don't just write, I read other people's. Like, take one I'm reading right now, for example. I'm reading a tomboy fanfiction, romance fanfiction, and for some reason they still have the tomboy character act girly sometimes. And it's very apparent by the fact that they have her brush her hair and apply makeup. And knowing tomboys in real life, I know that they don't do that. Okay? They don't. They don't do that. And, well, I don't get it. Like, in the story I'm reading now, like, I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want anyone to get offended if you've read it or not. But in the story, the author can't seem to decide whether or not she wants her main character to be a girly girl or a tomboy. And I don't understand why it's so hard for her to pick. You know, it should be easy. For me, I always personally have tomboy characters in my stories because they're easier to write, and honestly, they're more fun to be around in real life. So why not write about them, you know? Hence the reason I'm such a bigger fan of the Bon and Jericho couple than the Bon and Elaine couple, which I already mentioned in my last book discussion video, where I mentioned that I hate Elaine and Elaine's pairing with Bon, and I don't like Elaine. She's too boring. She's too generic, and not to mention she looks like a little girl, and Bon is like even though Elaine is way older than Bon, Bon looks way older than Elaine, so it makes me wonder what Bon's preferences are if he goes after, like, girls that look that young. You know, Jericho just seems better suited to be with Bon than Elaine, in my opinion. They play off each other so well in the anime that I felt like writing them is what I had to do, especially after seeing very, very, very little Bon and Jericho fanfictions out there. I knew I wanted to be the one to start writing them. Yeah, I mean, some other people had written them before me, but very, very little. It seems like there are not a lot of people that don't like Elaine for some reason. I can't see what there is to like about Elaine. I didn't get any emotion from her. Even though she died, basically, to save Bon, it's still not emotional to me. Elaine never seems to click. Elaine never clicks. Jericho does, so that's why I wanted to write Bon and Jericho fanfictions. So in One Late Night with the 7 Deadly Sins, I did Bon and Jericho as one of the two couples. In that fanfiction, there was two couples. There was Bon and Jericho, and I also did King and Deanne. And the King and Deannes, man, they're in high demand right now. People are basically, like, demanding me to write King and Deanne more often. But you know, sometimes I want to break off and I want to write Bon and Jericho because that's what I originally went to fanfiction writing career for, was to write Bon and Jericho, not King and Deanne. I had King and Deanne in mind, but I had Bon and Jericho in there first. So, yeah, whatever. So anyway, in this story, Why Do Girls Wear Makeup, I basically had this it was a very, very short story. It was like the third or fourth one I ever wrote. I'm not doing these in order. I want to do all my 7 Deadly Sins book discussions first, just to get them out of the way, because they are my most popular books, so I want to do those first, and then afterwards I'm hoping that you guys will stick around and watch my book discussions for the stories I've written that are not 7 Deadly Sins, which unfortunately don't get nearly as many reads. So, I'm gonna do more Seven Deadly Sins, but I'll get to that some other time. So basically, in this story, I had a version of Seven Deadly Sins where Jericho basically lives with the Seven Deadly Sins. I was just starting off. I didn't really think of a good scenario for why she should be there. It was pretty much a altered version of One Late Night, except it takes place in the early morning, and Jericho has a room of her own. She doesn't sleep in the kitchen like in One Late Night. So that's pretty much the only difference, really, in how it's set up. That's why I decided not to really elaborate on it, on, like, why Jericho is there. I did have, like, this funny thing where Bond tried to steal her bed and Jericho kicked him out, and so he slept on the floor. I thought that was funny. I don't know. Some people might think it's funny. So then basically I had Jericho do her makeup, and I had Bond splash her with a bucket of water, saying, "I like you better the way you are," kind of deal. And it ends with them making out, and it's really cute, and I really enjoyed writing it. And there's another thing I wanted to talk about this story in particular, and that is the cover. The cover was especially tricky to make for this one, I found, because, you know, for some reason, I have a hard time editing anime characters for covers. I have an extremely hard time. They should be easier to edit, but they're not. Especially Jericho, I'm finding. Her hair is hell to frickin' edit. Especially since I don't use Photoshop to make my covers. I use Microsoft Word 2010. Kind of outdated. My mom taught me how, because during my last run on YouTube, I still had to make thumbnails, so that knowledge is still in there. So that's what I use to make my book covers. So in this cover, I basically had makeup Jericho on the cover, and I had the title of the book with a font that I used on Flaming Text. I used Flaming Text to make all my book logos, and then behind her, it's kind of blocked because I ended up making Jericho's head and body a lot bigger on the cover than I thought, and the title covered up a bit as well. And it would have been more covered up if I was using, like, my name on the covers, but at that point my name was still Savage Gangsta 1, and I knew that I didn't want to keep it that way, so I didn't want to put that on the cover. It would have ruined it. So, but anyway, the background was the background was green, and it had black question marks on it. It was basically an homage to the Riddler, because the title has like a question mark in it. The title itself is a question, so I thought that, having question marks in the background would be a kind of cool thing. But as I said, Jericho blocks most of the question marks, so the question marks didn't get very well noticed, unfortunately. But, I'm alright with that. I honestly put a lot more effort into the book itself than I do with the cover, and so hence the reason you'll find that a lot of, especially my earlier book covers, you'll find that the book itself is much better than the cover. I'm not really all that proud of some of my first covers, so, whatever. So that's pretty much the story. If you want to go read it yourself, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below to my Wattpad account. You can read that story as well as all my other stories, Seven Deadly Sins. I write Soul Eater fanfiction. I wrote a Durarara fanfiction. I write Young Justice fanfiction. I write Zootopia fanfiction. And lately I've been writing some stories of my own creations, such as a book called Welt that takes place in a dystopian world where the Allies lose World War II, and another book called The Secret of Requiem, which I'm really putting in all my effort in right now. It's a Middle-earth book that currently has 2 chapters, well, 1 chapter and a prologue, and I'm having a blast writing it. I want it to be really long, and it'll probably take me years to write, and I feel a lot more confident in my books if I got more reads and more stars on them. So please go check out my Wattpad account in the description down below, and share this video with your friends, and share my books with your friends. If you are all fans of anime, then I would very much appreciate it. So that's pretty much all I have to talk about in this video, guys, so have a nice day.